The moment my brother-in-law walked through my front door carrying my sister's boxes, I didn't scream. I didn't cry. My heart was hammering so hard I could feel it in my throat, but I stood completely still in my own hallway and watched him stack them against my living room wall like he was moving furniture into a storage unit he'd already paid for. My mother was right behind him. She didn't knock. She never knocks. "Sweetheart," she said, and she had that tone, the one she uses when she's already decided something and is just waiting for you to catch up. "I need you to hear me out before you say anything." I looked at the boxes, 3 of them. One was open at the top and I could see my sister's winter boots, the expensive ones I'd lent her money to buy 2 Christmases ago. "Okay," I said. That was all. My mother took that as an invitation. She walked past me into my kitchen, pulled out a chair at my table. My table in my apartment that I had been paying $1,850 a month for since I was 26, and sat down like she was settling in for a long conversation she'd been rehearsing. "My name is Naomi. I'm 31 years old. I'm a registered nurse at a hospital in Ottawa, and for the better part of 5 years, I have been the person my family calls when something goes wrong. Not my sister. Not my brother. Me. I was the one who answered at 2 in the morning. I was the one who drove 4 hours when my mother's basement flooded. I was the one who co-signed things I shouldn't have co-signed and lent money I should have kept and said yes when the honest answer was that I was exhausted and barely holding myself together. But I kept saying yes because that's what you do. That's what I was taught. You take care of your family. You don't make a scene. You don't be difficult." I had spent 5 years being easy. That afternoon, watching my mother fold her hands on my kitchen table while my brother-in-law stacked more boxes in my hallway, I felt something shift. Not anger. Not yet. Something quieter than that. Something that felt like the last piece of a very long patience finally setting down. I need to go back a little. My sister, I'll call her what everyone else does, which is the one who gets to want things, is 3 years younger than me. She is charming in the way that people who have never been told no learn to be charming. She laughs loudly. She makes friends easily. She has never once in her life paid a bill on time, and my family has always treated this as a personality quirk rather than a problem. When she was 22, she moved to Montreal with a guy she'd known for 4 months. That relationship lasted 8 months and ended with her calling me to wire $600 so she could pay her last month's rent and get her damage deposit back. I sent it. I told myself it was a loan. I wrote it down in a notebook like that would make it real. When she was 24, she moved back to Ontario and got an apartment in Kanata. She needed first and last. Our parents helped with first. She asked me for last. That was $2,400. I transferred it on a Tuesday night while I was eating leftover soup at my kitchen counter after a 12-hour shift. I wrote that down too. There were other things. Small things that add up. $380. A dental bill she couldn't cover. $250. A flight home for Christmas 1 year when she'd spent her travel budget on something she wouldn't tell me about. I stopped keeping exact track, somewhere around the $4,000 mark. Because the number was starting to make me feel stupid, and I didn't want to feel stupid. I wanted to believe I was generous. My mother always thanked me for it. "You're so reliable," she'd say. "Your sister just needs more time to find her footing." And I would nod and say it was fine, because that is what I always said. It was fine. Everything was fine. My sister got married last spring. Her husband, the man currently stacking boxes in my hallway, works in sales and has very strong opinions about things he doesn't fully understand. At the wedding, during the reception, my mother pulled me aside and told me I was her rock. She held both my hands and looked at me with the kind of sincerity that should have felt good, and instead just felt like the setup to something. 3 months after the wedding, my sister called me. "Kyle and I have been having some issues," she said. She meant money. She meant that they had gotten into credit card debt and their rent had gone up and they were looking at their options. "We're thinking we might need to move for a while." "That makes sense," I said. "There are some good areas outside the city that are more affordable." There was a pause. "We were actually thinking closer to you." I didn't say anything. Mom thought maybe, just while we get back on our feet, we could stay with you for a bit. "Your place has that second room you use as an office." I said I'd think about it. I didn't think about it. I already knew my answer, and my answer was no. But I didn't say no right then because I was at work, and I needed to finish my shift without my hands shaking. I called my mother that evening. I can't have them stay with me, I said. I work night shifts. I need my space to decompress. My office is where I study for my continuing education credits. I need that room. My mother was quiet for a moment. Then she said, Naomi, she's your sister. I know she's my sister. She's going through a hard time, I know. But I can't fix this one. We got off the phone and I thought that was the end of it. I actually thought that. I was 31 years old and I still believed that saying no to my mother once was enough to make something stop. That was 6 weeks. Before the afternoon I came home from a 9-hour shift to find my brother-in-law's truck parked outside my building and my sister standing in my living room with her coat still on, looking at me with an expression that was somewhere between defiant and afraid. I stood in the doorway. I looked at her. I looked at the boxes. When did you get a key? I asked. My mother had come out of the kitchen by then. I gave it to her, she said. I still have the spare from when you first moved in. Naomi, before you react, you gave my keys to someone else without asking me. She's your sister. She's not someone else. I set my bag down on the floor. I took off my shoes. I did these things slowly because I needed a moment, and the only moment available to me was the one I could manufacture by doing ordinary things at an ordinary pace. Then I looked at my mother and I said, "What exactly is the plan here?" And that was when she told me. The plan. And she said this like it was reasonable, like she had thought it through and arrived at something fair. Was that my sister and her husband would take my bedroom. I would move my things into the office, and we would share the space until they could sort out their finances. She said it might be 3 months, maybe 4. Just to get through the winter, she said. She said I was barely home anyway because of my shifts. She said it would help my sister get stable. She said family takes care of family. I looked at my sister the whole time my mother was talking. My sister was looking at the floor. How long have you been planning this? I asked. My mother said it didn't matter how long. It does matter, I said. Because I told you no 6 weeks ago. And you planned this anyway, and you waited until I'd just worked a 9-hour shift to do it. So how long? My sister finally looked up. A few weeks, she said, and she said it quietly, which I think she meant to come across as apologetic, but it didn't land that way. It landed like confirmation. My brother-in-law was still in the hallway. I turned around and looked at him. I need you to take those boxes back to your truck, I said. He looked at my mother. Kyle, I said. I'm talking to you. Take the boxes back to your truck, Naomi. My mother's voice had shifted. The warm tones was gone. I want you to stop and think about what you're doing right now. This is your family. Your sister needs help. You have the space. You're going to throw her out in November. I'm not throwing anyone out. No one lives here but me. That's a very cold way to think about it. It's an accurate way to think about it. You're being selfish. There it was us. That word. I had been waiting for it the way you wait for a door you know is going to open. I work nights, I said. I come home and I need quiet. I pay $1,850 a month for this apartment. I have been lending your daughter money for 9 years and I have never once asked for any of it back. I said no 6 weeks ago and you broke into my apartment to do this anyway, and I'm the one being selfish. My mother stared at me. My sister said, "You don't have to make it about money." "Someone should," I said. It went on for a while after that. My mother cried. My sister got angry and said some things I'm not going to repeat here because I've already given them enough space in my head. My brother-in-law tried to reason with me, which I found remarkable given that he was standing uninvited in my hallway. They told me I was cold. They told me I'd changed. They told me I didn't understand what it was like to struggle. This, to me, who had been quietly subsidizing their struggles for the better part of a decade. I did not raise my voice once. I said, clearly and more than once, I need you to leave. When they didn't, I picked up my phone and called non-emergency police. I said I had people in my apartment who had entered without my permission using a key I had not given them, and they were refusing to leave. The dispatcher was calm. She said she'd send someone. My mother looked at me like I had thrown something at her. "You're calling the police on your own family," she said. "I'm asking people who won't leave my home to leave my home," I said. The family part is a coincidence. They left before the officers arrived. My brother-in-law took the boxes. My sister didn't say anything to me on her way out. My mother paused in the doorway and said, "You'll regret this." I said, "Drive safe." I closed the door. I locked it. I stood in the middle of my living room for a long time without moving. Then I did the thing I should have done 6 weeks ago. I called a locksmith. He came the next morning and changed all 3 locks. I stood there in my pajamas drinking coffee while he worked, and I felt something I didn't have a name for at the time, but that I now understand was relief. Plain, uncomplicated relief, like setting down something very heavy that you've been carrying for so long you stopped noticing the weight. I also went through my lease. I'm the only name on it. I have been for 5 years. I called my building manager, explained the situation, and confirmed in writing that I was the sole authorized occupant and that no one else had permission to access my unit. She was incredibly helpful and sympathetic and told me if it happened again to call her immediately. Then I called a lawyer, not because I thought anything would escalate to that point, but because I wanted to understand exactly where I stood. She told me that what had happened, someone using a key obtained without the tenant's consent to enter and begin moving belongings in, could constitute unauthorized entry, and that if it happened again, I had grounds to pursue it formally. I wrote down everything she told me. I thanked her, and I paid her $200 for the hour, which was the most useful $200 I had spent in years. For about 2 weeks after that, I didn't hear anything, which was in its own way, its own kind of weather system. The silence from my family was not neutral. I could feel it. It had texture. It was the silence of people deciding how to come back. My mother texted first. It was brief. It said she hoped I was okay and that she was still processing what had happened. I read it 3 times and didn't reply. My sister texted the following day. Hers was longer. She said she understood I was upset, but that she needed me to understand how hard things were for them. She said she hoped we could move past it. She said she missed me. I sat with that for a while. Then I wrote back. I told her I cared about her. I also told her that what she and our mother had done, planning for weeks to move into my apartment against my explicit refusal, using a key that had been taken without my knowledge, was not something I could move past without some honesty about it. I said I was not willing to keep being the person this family called when it needed something, if this was how the relationship worked when I said no. I said I needed her to acknowledge what had happened. Not apologize necessarily, just acknowledge it. She did not acknowledge it. She sent back a message about how I had humiliated her in front of her husband by calling the police, and that she thought I should take some time to reflect on the kind of person I want to be. I read it. I put my phone down. I went and made dinner. My brother called the week after that. He'd always been somewhat neutral in family conflicts, the kind of person who stays out of things because staying out of things is comfortable. He asked if I was doing okay. He said he'd heard both sides. I told him there were not 2 sides to Samsa entering my home without permission. He said he understood that, but also asked me to see it from my sister's perspective. I said, I've been seeing things from her perspective for 9 years. Yeah, I'm going to take a break. He laughed, I think, because he wasn't sure if I was joking. I wasn't joking. My mother tried one more time about 3 weeks later. She asked if she could come over. She phrased it as a question this time, which I noted, and I said not right now. She asked when. I said I didn't know. She said she missed me. I said that was true for me too, in a way that was complicated. She didn't come over. I didn't call her. We have not spoken on the phone since. I want to be clear about something, because I think it's easy for a story like this to get flattened into something simpler than it is. I do not hate my family. I don't think my mother is a monster. I think she has a daughter she loves too much in a particular way. The kind of love that fixes things instead of letting them grow. The kind that teaches the person being loved that someone else will always catch them. I think she also has another daughter she has always trusted to be fine, which is a different kind of mistake. I think she loves me. I just don't think she knows me very well. My sister is not a bad person either. I think she was taught to want more than she earned, and no one ever made that uncomfortable enough for her to change. I was too easy for too long, and then I stopped being easy, and she didn't have the tools for that. What I know now, what those locks and that phone call and that $200 hour with a lawyer taught me, is that saying yes to everything is not the same as love. It looks like love from the outside. It feels like love when you're doing it because you want to help, you want to be the person who shows up. But there's a version of always showing up that is actually about your own fear of being the one who didn't. And I had been afraid for a long time. Afraid of being called selfish. Afraid of being the one who didn't care enough. Afraid of what would happen if I held still and let someone else's problem just be their problem. The afternoon I called a locksmith and changed my locks. I was not afraid. I was 31 years old. Standing in my own apartment in my pajamas, watching a man replace 3 locks with better ones. I had a lease with my name on it, and a building manager who had my back, and a lawyer I'd now call again if I needed to. I had the number for non-emergency police already in my phone's recent calls. And I had something I hadn't had in a long time, which was the simple, uncomplicated feeling of being in a space that was mine. That no one could walk into without my permission. That was small and quiet, and smelled like the candle I'd lit that morning and cost me $1,850 a month, and was worth every cent. My sister and her husband eventually found a 2-bedroom in Gloucester. I know this because my brother mentioned it in passing. They seem to be managing. I hope they continue to manage. I hope they figure out their finances and pay down their debt and build something stable. I mean that, without any bitterness. I just don't hope it happens in my living room. My mother and I are in a kind of quiet standoff that I think will eventually soften into something else. I'm not ready for that yet. I'm in the middle of studying for a certification exam, and I'm working a lot. And I'm sleeping well for the first time in years, and I am not in a hurry. The notebook where I used to track the money I lent my sister. I found it while I was reorganizing my office after they left. I sat down and added up the total for the first time in a couple of years. I'm not going to say the number here. I'll just say that it was high enough that when I saw it, I sat there for a minute and didn't move. Then I closed the notebook and put it away. Not because I've forgiven everything, or because I think it doesn't matter, but because it's done. That money is gone and I'm not getting it back, and holding on to the number doesn't do anything, except keep me tethered to a version of myself who would have said yes again. I'm not that version anymore. The locks are changed. The key my mother had is obsolete. My building manager has my number. My lawyer has my file. And when I come home now, when I unlock my own door with my own key after a long shift, when I drop my bag and take off my shoes and stand in the quiet of my own apartment, I don't feel the low-grade dread I used to feel. The wondering of who might need something, who might call, who might show up. I just feel home.